we are taking another dive into one of the scariest corners of the internet today. Ooh, the fake disorder cringe subreddit. This is a place where people go to fake claims, so they repost people who talk about having certain mental health or neurodevelopmental conditions like autism and try and pick apart why they are faking, usually with a heavy dose of mocking, and often, unfortunately, that is focused on the person's appearance. Their tagline is, "Come and cringe at the people faking disorders for attention and clout." But don't worry, because in their rules, they state no bullying and no targeted harassment. The first example we have of definitely not harassment, that's sarcasm, is titled, "Another self-diagnosed autistic girl on TikTok. Why do they all look the same?" And then they've shared someone's TikTok. We're obviously immediately zoning in on the person's appearance there, which is supposedly against the fake disorder cringe rules, actually. No insults based on appearance. This includes comments about weight. However, there is a handy little loophole here. You can criticize things that are within the subject's control, such as aesthetic. Another issue with that title is self-diagnosed autistic girl. First of all, take it with a pinch of salt when fake disorder cringe say that somebody is self-diagnosed. They are very often wrong. They do not do their research before they slap somebody up on this subreddit. And regardless, someone else's medical record is none of their business. But also, they obviously haven't spent very much time analyzing this person's TikTok before posting it on fake disorder cringe. For one, they forgot to blank out their username, which posters are supposed to do here, but also they've missed the fact that this person is non-binary, and that is made very clear from the hashtags on this video. I mean, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they genuinely did just miss that, but it is a bit of a red flag next to the statement, "Why do they all look the same?" Is it surprising if a high number of autistic people present themselves in a similar way when there is an overlap between being autistic and gender diversity? It's ironic that they think somebody not conforming to gender norms is a sign that they're a faker. Let's take a look at the TikTok. So this is one of those put a finger down if you relate videos.
Put a finger down, autistic culture edition. Put a finger down if you walk on the balls of your feet. Put a finger down if you've got a comfort object. Put a finger down if you wrap yourself up in a blanket burrito. Put a finger down if you've inappropriately info dumped on a stranger. Put a finger down if you prefer subtitles. Put a finger down if you're hypermobile in some form. Put a finger down if you've got a messed up sleep schedule. Put a finger down if you've got messed up posture. Put a finger down if you unconsciously mimic the way people talk. And put a finger down if you Google common phrases in case you get them wrong.
But obviously these videos are not supposed to be diagnostic tools. That's not why they made. They're literally somebody saying, "I am putting a finger down if I personally relate to these traits." And then the top comment is, "Put a finger down if you're a fucking idiot." And to that I say, put a finger down if you enjoy targeting seemingly very young people online. And it looks like 400 plus people need to put a finger down. Maybe like all of their fingers down so they stop typing on fake disorder cringe. I think there's an issue sometimes when TikToks like this one are pulled out of their original context. This is a post that was created within and for the autism communities on TikTok. This content was not made to maliciously convince or misguidedly convince random people that they're autistic. It's made so autistic people can chat about their traits and relate to each other. And I believe lived experience and lived experience content matters. I see comments from people here mocking the autistic culture thing. As I say, yes, online communities do develop little subcultures. I think subcultures among young people are pretty common in general, but now with the internet, a lot of those live online. Autistic people can communicate online now. We're not so isolated. Is that really a bad thing? Do you want us to be lonely, having a meltdown in a corner somewhere? Is that where you think we belong? That's where we must stay in order to be valid. As soon as you post yourself on TikTok, you've lost your diagnosis, sorry. And this next exchange might be the worst I've ever seen in a fake disorder cringe comment section. Unfortunately, there does seem to be a lot of crossover with the people who think a lot of autistic people online are faking. A lot of those people also seem to enjoy policing LGBT people and, implying that they might be faking being LGBT. We saw this in the reaction that I did to that Book Angel video and also the video about Ariel Scarcella. So someone said, "Why are they all fake lesbians. So I have no idea about this person's sexuality. That is not stated here. They state that they are non-binary. Obviously, that's their gender identity, not their sexuality. I do not know whether this person identifies as a lesbian. Being fake lesbian was not enough. You must combine it with fake autism as well. Does fake disorder cringe think you have to get a medical diagnosis in order to call yourself a lesbian? Probably. I don't know. You do not get to decide someone else's sexuality. As somebody who is queer/non-binary from the LGBTQ community, this comment is honestly so true. They all end up with a boyfriend who is chubby with a neckbeard, who has never been part of LGBTQ or ever thought about it. And I'm not coming for their boyfriends, but 9 times out of 10, that's the case. And I'm spitting facts. You're spitting something, I don't know. They call themselves non-binary and shit. And it's honestly not the case. I'm a firm believer that sexuality is fluid, a firm believer, but they box themselves and say so much, then go the opposite way. Again, they are non-binary. We know nothing about their sexuality from this TikTok. Maybe they do want a boyfriend with a neckbeard. Who cares either way? And I love how they said, you can be fluid, but also you've boxed yourself in. And then according to somebody else in the comments, they can't be non-binary because they used AFAB in the hashtags. Maybe they wanted the content to reach other people who are AFAB, non-binary, and autistic. If they want to disclose that they're AFAB, isn't that up to them? Why are we policing that on their behalf? Anyway, I don't think this person has the same TikTok name anymore. I hope they didn't have to change it due to any harassment as a result of being posted on the Fake Disorder Cringe subreddit. No, it definitely can't be that, can it? Because there's no harassment here. It clearly says it in the rules. It's impossible. Next, we have being sleepy in the morning equals autism/ADHD. So this TikTok I've actually seen before. I did this exclusive video over on my Patreon. It's like a wholesome TikTok reactions, and this one was in there, and I absolutely loved it. Let's find out why Fake Disorder Cringe found it so offensive. But before we do, today's video is a very spooky collaboration with Wild. Wild is a vegan, cruelty-free, refillable deodorant brand. I've been using them for 2 years now, so it actually works. I promise I've not been walking around stinking for 2 years. Now that would be scary. But speaking of scary, spooky, cozy season, Wild have just released this limited edition ghost case featuring various little ghosts spooking around in various little ways. My favorite is Mr. Sheet Ghost over here. That is my ghost of choice. I really appreciate that Wild are making it easier for us to reduce single-use plastics in our toiletries. If you don't know how Wild works, you just go to their website, you choose a case, you add some refills in your chosen scents, and when it arrives, you insert your little refills, which are in compostable packaging, and then you swipe it on. It's a really creamy formula, and I find a little goes a long way. If you already have a case and you just want a refill, they do have a limited edition scent for Halloween. It's called Vanilla Bean and Buttercream, which is really fun to say, but this is my favorite scent that they've ever made. I wish you could smell it through the camera. You can check out all their other limited edition scents on their website. There are also loads of amazing all year round classic scents to try. And if that's not really your thing, you can opt for fragrance free. Many of their scents are also available in sensitive though. Wild ships worldwide. They have a flexible subscription option, or you can just buy your refills as needed. If you'd like to give it a try and maybe get the little ghosts while they're available, you can use my code 2024MEGAN to get 20% off. Click the link or scan the QR code. The discount applies to any product on the Wild website, including their refillable shower gels and lip balms, but for a limited time only. Woo! Back to the video. Let's watch this TikTok and see why they got their knickers in a twist over this on Fake Disorder Cringe. Doesn't take much, does it?
Morning, babe. I'm making a coffee now. You want one? I'll make you one anyway.
This describes my life and my dynamic with my husband, who, like, even when he's really tired and he really doesn't want to get out of bed, you know, he might have to lie there and have a little bit of a scroll for a second, but then he, you know, he's able to get out of bed. And I just find it so hard to pull myself out of sleep. It's like I'm being drowned by sleep. I can't remember what being awake is. I can't remember any intentions I had the night before. I'm so confused by existence. Autistic people often really struggle with transitions. Getting out of bed in the morning is a huge transition, if not the biggest transition you will make all day, apart from getting into bed at the end of the day, which can also be a huge struggle for autistic people. I'm not sure all autistic people and ADHDers struggle with these things. As with most traits, we don't necessarily have them all, but I'm sure many, many do. One of the things many neurodivergent people struggle with is executive dysfunction. Executive function just simply describes the skills you use to manage everyday tasks. It includes working memory, cognitive flexibility, and inhibition control. Autistic people and ADHDers can struggle with change, and that can be a change in environment, such as getting out of bed. So yes, if you struggle with cognitive flexibility, you might not bound out of bed in the morning. Also, it's very well documented that being autistic can come with struggles falling asleep, which might just mean you didn't get enough sleep and therefore find it harder to wake up. Why do these people think that TikToks like this take off if it doesn't resonate at all with autistic people and ADHDers? Why do they think there are so many other TikToks from autistic people, from ADHDers about struggling to get out of bed if it is not a trait and not a common lived experience that we have?
Can somebody tell me if this is like an autism, ADHD, or PDA autism thing? I can't wake up in the mornings. Like, I'll hear my alarm, I'll be awake, but I cannot get out of bed. Like, the thought of me waking up and getting out of bed and doing things is just paralyzing, and I can't move. So I will just like lay there until I'm late for whatever I have to do, or I have to pee so bad that I'm in pain.
So the top comment here is pretty worrying. About 2 hours ago, I had no idea that people fake disorders, and now here I am in the rabbit hole of attention seekers. Please do not believe that these people are faking or attention seekers just because somebody else on Reddit told you so. I don't go digging for somebody else's diagnostic status, but often if you just find these people on TikTok, it's usually very easy to find the actual TikTok. Within 2 seconds, you find them talking about their, medical diagnosis story or something like that.
A few years back when I was 25, I was diagnosed with autism spectrum condition. And life for me is far from easy. I struggle to be around people. I struggle with my emotions. I just felt different and I couldn't pinpoint why. I didn't know what was wrong. I've had autistic meltdowns my whole life, and like most women who fall and slip through the cracks like I did with diagnosis, I was labelled a naughty girl, prima donna, terrible twos, going into like teenage tantrum. I didn't know how to help myself or help other people to understand me.
So please do not take the word of random strangers on the internet. I think what actually happened here is you watched this TikTok, thought this is a pretty young woman, this is not the stereotype of autism, therefore you are not autistic. I do not believe you are autistic. So now I'm going to pick apart this silly, fun skit that you did that once again was aimed at the autistic community. It's not supposed to be like public announcement. If you ever struggled to get out of bed ever, then you are definitely autistic. I have diagnosed you via TikTok. That is not what this content is supposed to be. And then there's a load of people below suggesting other fake or exposing subreddits that this person might enjoy. But then interestingly, they warn the person that all the rules are enforced a little bit more over on these places. I do think it's strange that so many people seem to enjoy this and seem to seek out this fake claiming content. What does it do for you? I don't know. Do people just enjoy to kind of feel outraged on the behalf of the real autistic people? I hate those days when you wake up with autism and ADHD. Like normally I just wake up with one or the other, but both, it's like, get me back to sleep, please. Am I right? /S sarcasm. I mean, if you are autistic or an ADHDer, you probably will wake up with the traits. They do tend to be there all of the time. So, kind of accurate. Autism /ADHD. Is it ADHD and /or autism? Or are ADHD and autism the same thing according to her? I mean, autism and ADHD are very closely linked. Many people do have both. The stats are usually around 50 to 70% of autistic people also have an ADHD diagnosis, and researchers are looking into that overlap. It's often very hard to tell where one condition ends and the other begins. Attention differences are pretty inherent to autism. You can watch my video about monotropism if you kind of want to understand that a little bit more. A lot of autistic people do struggle with attention regulation. We can have, special interests, get super zoned in and hyper-focused. We can struggle with changing tasks, with executive functioning, as we said, and also following following through on things we don't want to do can be really challenging for us. This is a quote about an autistic mother trying to get her autistic son, who was diagnosed autistic at 15 months old, trying to get him ready for school. Every morning, Abigail Wadinsky sets a timer to keep her 12-year-old son on track while he gets dressed for school. Otherwise, she says, he'll find 57 other things to do on the way to the bathroom. I feel attacked by that. My husband would agree. Every time we have to leave to go somewhere, I'm like, oh, but can I just squeeze this half-an-hour task into this 5 minutes before we have to walk out the door? Some researchers have even proposed an autism ADHD spectrum, so maybe it's the same condition but presenting in different ways in different people, and maybe that's why so many of us, including me, end up with both of the diagnoses. But there is conflicting evidence where that's concerned. I don't know, it's messy and complicated. A lot of us have both autism and ADHD. That's all you need to know. Attention stuff, autism, common, yes. The worst is when I have to wake up, set up my Ring facial light, and then lay back down so I can record myself pretending to wake up. Do you not know how a skit works? The fake twitching of her eye is maddening. That was actually like my favorite part of it. I thought it was super impressive acting, 10 out of 10 personally. Sleep inertia is not a symptom of autism or ADHD. Why do these people attribute literally everything to both disorders? Because of executive dysfunction, because of difficulty with transitions. Look into the term autistic inertia if you'd like to learn more. I talk about it a bit in this video here, which I'll leave linked. It's a difficulty with starting and stopping tasks that many autistic people experience. It is the tendency that autistic people have to want to remain in a constant state. When we're asleep, we want to stay asleep. When awake, we want to stay awake. When we're working on one thing, we want to keep working on it. When we're doing one thing, we want to keep doing that one thing. These are the words of an autistic person, but I guess lived experience is meaningless to people on Fake Disorder Cringe. So tired, she wakes up with full makeup and her hair is styled to look like it's not. And again, it's a skit. We all know it's a skit. But also, if she has ADHD, if she has difficulties with executive dysfunction, maybe she just forgot to take off her makeup last night. And maybe she just wakes up with cute, messy hair. I don't know. Not her fault.
I have sensory processing disorder as well. I absolutely loathe brushing my hair, brushing my teeth, because it really is such an uncomfortable, painful sensation for me.
Another post, somebody shared this. Yo, let's not do this to people. People can have autism symptoms. You don't need to make them think they do. That title's a bit confusing, but I think they mean you can have autistic traits without actually being autistic, which is true. I often say autistic traits are human traits. You can definitely relate to autistic people without being autistic yourself. You may even find accommodations for autistic people are helpful to you, and that's fine. Like, you're welcome to engage with autistic content if you're not autistic. But also, at the same time, an autism diagnosis is based on autistic traits. That is how you're diagnosed autistic, and you don't need to have every single trait in the DSM-5. You do need to meet all of the social elements of it, but you only need 2 of 4 in the restrictive and repetitive behavior category. So you don't need to have all autistic traits in order to be diagnosed autistic according to the DSM-5. Anyway, they shared this person who looks super cool. They have the elf ears, they have the inflatable duck earrings, like duck floats, and then the hair color is lovely. I wish I could do my hair in like bright colors, but I know it fades quite quickly and I can't be bothered, so I just dye it black. So they posted this TikTok in response to a comment that was left on one of their other TikToks. I went digging and I found that other TikTok, and it was part of this trend where people say, I'm so good at masking, no one would ever know that I'm autistic. And then you show a load of things that you do that actually make it super, super obvious that you're autistic to other people, which is funny because we often aren't as good as we think we are at hiding our autistic traits. Even before we're diagnosed, even before we know we're autistic, we often know we're weird. We're often told we're weird. Even when we try our best, to come across as normal, be a human, doesn't always work out.
I am so good at masking. No one would ever realize I was autistic if I didn't say anything.
So almost all of the traits they've listed here are featured in the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism. Most of them relate to stimming, to repetitive behaviors. And even though non-autistic people do stim, these are pretty stereotypical autistic stims. Again, we have the toe walking, we have hand flapping, we have finger tapping, and having over-the-top facial expressions and gestures. You might notice me talking with my hands all the time, is also in section 2A. So some examples it gives are abnormalities in eye contact and body language, or deficits in understanding and use of gestures. And then it also lists total lack of facial expression as an example as well. So somebody commented on that TikTok and basically said, I'm not autistic, but I do all of these things, lol. So then this creator made a TikTok responding to that, basically saying, if you relate to these so much, then, you know, maybe you might be autistic. And then this was the TikTok that was posted up on Fake Disorder Cringe.
Nah, man, I just got symptoms disorder.
And the caption is, genuinely, maybe talk to someone about it. So I take that as them saying, you might want to talk to a doctor or a psychologist, because I do all of these things and I'm diagnosed autistic. Because yes, this person is actually diagnosed autistic. As I say, that does not mean you're marked safe from being posted on Fake Disorder Cringe.
So I've been diagnosed as autistic, but sometimes I'm still like, is that true? And then I realized that when I was like 8 years old, I had created an entire language called Cerise.
They were clinically diagnosed for at least a year before this video was posted. I do kind of agree that if somebody relates to hand flapping, finger tapping, and toe walking, it might not be a huge waste of your time to look into neurodivergence and autism. To see if any of the other traits resonate with you, hand flapping was my starting point. I thought I was the only person in the world to flap my hands. It was a huge thing that when I was younger, I flapped my hands and it was like a cute little quirk and they'd never seen anybody else do it before. Me learning that it was an autism thing was my starting point. And then I learned about sensory differences, meltdowns, demand avoidance, how so many autistic people struggle socially at school and feel completely ostracized. And my entire life started to make sense. And then I was diagnosed autistic. So while hand flapping and stimming alone is not enough, you can't just get an autism diagnosis with that being your only trait. If that is something that you do, it is a stereotypical trait for a reason. It may be worth looking into it. And you may have also edited your behavior as you grew up and stopped stimming in big, obvious ways, because it can lead to you being socially ostracized, unfortunately. Autistic people do sometimes go over the top with suggesting that other people might be autistic. I think Paige Liel takes this a bit too far sometimes, for example, but it comes from a good place. It comes from a place of, this diagnosis completely changed my life. It could change your life too, so I want you to know about it. But of course, we could be wrong. And even if it's not wrong, it can feel pretty invasive. So I do think we should proceed with caution when implying that somebody else is autistic. But again, I do think the people posting this on Fake Disorder Cringe are missing the context. This is supposed to be a light-hearted TikTok. Autism is highly heritable, and I think many of us can relate to having family members who acknowledge that they have basically every autistic trait that you do and like go, oh, we're so similar. And you literally have a medical autism diagnosis and you're like, maybe there's a reason why we're so similar. But then they like absolutely will not, use the word autism. Maybe it was more stigmatized for their generation or whatever. So they're just like, funny that we're so similar and you're autistic, but I'm definitely not. So that whole thing of like, you just have symptoms disorder, I guess. Like that is pretty funny to a lot of us, I think. Yes, we do need to watch ourselves with the armchair diagnosis, but I think it's still a funny TikTok. Can I ask why a ton of these kids are now doing the weird tribal paint type makeup? Is this some new trend I'm not aware of? And can I ask, why are you commenting on kids makeup on Reddit for fun? Is that a new trend that I'm not aware of? Apparently so. I can hear millions of parents quietly saying, it's just a phase, it's just a phase. Can I just say that as a parent, I am more than happy for my child to express some individuality and wear some inflatable duck earrings. Not the end of the world to me, personally. What is wrong with having fun with the way you look? Who is it hurting? Every day I thank God I graduated high school before social media became what it is now, because holy balls, I would have, without a doubt, have been one of these kids. The thing is, people dressed oddly and followed trends and subcultures long before the internet, like punk anyone? Did that exist? Making up for a lack of any personality with head accessories. Why did you choose to see it that way rather than, I can tell from the way they dress that they must be an interesting person? It does water down any criticism that you might have when you resort to personal attacks in this way, as fake disorder cringe so often does. But I suppose if it's aesthetics, it's allowed here. Someone said elf ears are a classic symptom of autism. You're probably not entirely wrong with that. You see, the comment that I just made is the kind of thing that fake disorder cringe would pull out of context and use to offend themselves. A joke. Oh, she's so disgusting. She just diagnosed everybody who wears elf ears with a serious disorder. And why is she wearing makeup on the internet and claiming to be autistic? Autistic people can't hold an eyeliner pen. What are you talking about? And why does she have boxes behind her? Does she not have furniture? And the answer is no. I don't currently have any furniture in this room. Sometimes we're just having fun. Sometimes we're just making content aimed at people in our online communities. And yes, having online communities is fine. It's good. It's really cool that autistic people can talk to each other. Sometimes, like with the sleep one, we're kind of laughing at our own expense. That can be a way to cope with difficult things. As someone who was genuinely diagnosed with autism by a professional at the age of 8, the more I browse this shit, the more offended I get. These people have no clue what it's like actually being born with a condition like autism and having to grow up with it. Even though I turned out as a remarkably normal adult, that's thanks to my amazing parents who did their best to steer me in a correct direction without being too restrictive. I can kind of understand sometimes why some autistic people are drawn to fake disorder cringe and, you know, end up commenting on these things. I think maybe if you are in a really dark place, you're really struggling, you're in an autistic burnout, it might be quite difficult to see content from autistic creators who don't seem in that moment to be having a difficult time. But the thing is, that is one snapshot. They're not likely to be filming themselves. Some autistic creators do, but most of the time, these creators are not filming themselves during a meltdown. You do not know what goes on behind the scenes. You do not know that they would not relate to everything you said about your experience. This person's TikTok username is fairy_depressed. They have a whole series on their TikTok of inpatient stories from the times that they have spent hospitalized for their mental health struggles. You don't know this person's story. Imagine if somebody turned around and invalidated you because you seem, in your own words, remarkably normal for an autistic person. Some autistic people do have higher support needs, but just because maybe somebody does struggle less than you do doesn't mean that that person, you know, isn't autistic and is faking being autistic. They may just have a different experience to you. And going back to the appearance thing, autistic people don't always understand or choose to follow social norms. We can maybe sometimes prefer to dress in ways that relate to our special interests. Many autistic people love cosplay. Is it surprising that we sometimes might present ourselves in ways that look a bit weird to neurotypical people? It's ironic that fake disorder cringe fixates so much on appearance for that reason. They're pretty much just bullying autistic people for the same things that they were probably bullied about when they were in high school. I do wish these people would ask themselves, what if I'm wrong? What if I am just picking on somebody who has spent time in a mental health facility, who was diagnosed later in life, because autism has historically been underdiagnosed in AFAB individuals and other marginalized groups? Does it not make these people feel really bad to think that they could be wrong? Is it really worth the risk? I don't know. If you missed last week's video, it was a deep dive into why some parents of autistic children want their kids to hold these blue pumpkins when they go trick-or-treating on Halloween in order to signal to the entire neighborhood that their child is in fact autistic. I'll leave that linked on screen. If you want something a bit more upbeat and lighthearted, the week before that, I also did a cozy reaction video to Actually Autistic TikToks made by autistic people with a little bit of a Halloween theme. And you are more than welcome to join my Patreon. The lowest tier is $4 a month. You can join the Discord server where you can chat to other autistic and neurodivergent people and people who think they might be neurodivergent. You don't have to be diagnosed with anything to join. You just have to be nice. Nobody is going to police your diagnosis over there. That is very much against the rules of the server. And also on the lowest tier, you can access a load of exclusive videos. And then second tier and up, you can also access a podcast. We're also going to be doing an episode really soon that was voted on the poll about idioms. We've bought these books of popular idioms and we're going to kind of like quiz each other. And then we're going to read the actual meaning and see if we were right. So it's going to be interesting, like autistic person versus neurotypical person. My husband, like how good are we at idioms? You're done with everything on this channel and you want some more. There's lots to go through. This is not my permanent setup. I was just like, I'll just style fill some of our moving boxes with some LED candles and some pumpkins. And remember, if you want to get the Wild Ghost case or vanilla bean and buttercream or anything else on their website, then you can use my code 2024Megan to get 20% off. Yes, my name is Megan. Bye!